Through the Woods is a third-person folk horror game where you play as Karen, a single mother alone in the Norwegian wilderness with a son Espen who goes off with a strange man, and Karen is determined to get him back. The game is available on Steam. Atmosphere. Whilst the beginning of the game is calming and almost beautiful, the tone changes immediately as soon as Espen goes missing. The atmosphere comes from goes depending on the story, and this leaves certain moments feeling a little empty, but when present, things escalate slowly, from the eerie sensation that you're somewhere you shouldn't be, with the empty derelict houses telling a story of their own, to the unsettling feeling that you're being watched. This uncanny sense of the supernatural, and finally being messed with psychologically.
What's that sound?
But there's often a large gap between the moments, as Karen recaps her feelings and the story in general, and the atmosphere dissipates during this time.
When Espen was younger, his father did something terrible. To Espen, to me, to himself. I was left all alone with a child I couldn't confide in. He didn't give me the chance to say I was sorry, and I never forgave him.
There's some parts of wonder and mystery in the spaces between the fear, but the feeling of dread and uncertainty is not a constant thing, and it vanishes quite quickly. Whilst it has some really good moments, the time without it can feel empty. This is almost certainly done on purpose, but it really segments the atmosphere, and the time in between can sometimes drag. That's no Harry Masons.
God damn it, talk to me. Come out. I heard you whispering. Hey! Stop! I just want to talk to you!
Scares. The game scares like its atmosphere are sparse. The early game has the bewilderment factor as it's unclear what's really happening, and encountering enemies many times your size, making horrific, unnerving moaning noises generates a very real fear. Karen is defenseless and there's no stealth mechanics or anything, so there's a minor sense of panic as you try to figure out what you have to do to survive the encounter. Different enemies bring a different level of fear, with some of them being unsettling annoyances and others being pretty frightening. Running away from the larger creatures is terrifying. Once it sees you, it's pretty much over and you're just postponing the inevitable by trying to get away. And the death animations are unique and mostly done with a cutaway that has a distressing series of sound effects, with Karen screaming and the monster wailing that culminates in a devastating silence. The game does have some interesting events, with a note mentioning some water monster that watched a writer from the lake, and there are several points where you hear the water splashing around and almost see something in the distance, and it felt like the game was going to build on this, but it was a bit disappointing that nothing really became of it. The later game enemies don't really muster the same fear as the early game enemies, and there's a large amount of very little in between them. The game has one or two truly great moments, but as previously mentioned, the fear and the atmosphere disappear after an event as Karen recaps what she saw. That's still no Harry Masons. Sound design. The sound design is incredibly subtle between the thick, realistic ambiance of the woods and the sounds of Karen's footsteps pattering against the soil. The music creeps in. either a sinister violating series of violins that frantically play at the very edge of hearing, like the sound of madness lurking in the depths of your mind, to a long, dread-filled tone like the sound fog would make. The game has some louder, somber piano pieces, but the atmospheric tracks lurk low in the mix. The music is really good, but barely audible seemingly on purpose. It doesn't hurt the experience, but just lingers in the background, adding to the atmosphere. The sound effects are really great, from the frankly haunting moans of some of the creatures to the animals and nature sounds that permeate the game. The voice acting is brilliant, with Karen herself delivering some really heartfelt speeches about her past and the things she witnessed, to the harrowing deliveries of the tormented people in the village.
I'm looking for my son. An old man with a white beard took him, and I think they came this way. Please, have you seen them?
It's done! Don't you see? You whore's son! You shan't take her from me now, Eric! You shan't take her!
I don't know what you're talking about. I'm not Eric. I won't touch your daughter. Who is he? Does he have my son? Please, I need to know!
The wolf! You simpering bitch! The wolf!
The sound space and reverb don't really stand out, but they're functional. Overall, the sound design is pretty good. That's one Harry Mason. Gore. Through the Woods has very little gore, but a lot of old corpses that are unpleasant to see. Not disgusting or gross, just sad and harrowing. That's two Harry Masons. Story. Karen, Espen's mother, takes her son to the Norwegian woods to work on her projects with him, but finds herself working late into the night and leaving Espen alone during the day when she's asleep. And after awakening one day, she catches Espen climbing into a boat with a mysterious man and swims after him. Most of the game is her chasing after Espen and slowly realizing where she is and her child's destiny. The story is told really well, and the piecing together of information is done excellently to keep telling creepy stories without ever stating specifically what's happening, so the realization hits later. It may hurt the atmosphere and scares, but Karen recapping what she saw is insightful and makes the character more relatable. Notes left by the villagers tell tales of people who are scared of these supernatural forces they've become accustomed to but can tolerate no longer, and the environmental storytelling left by the derelict houses and numerous corpses needs very little explanation as to what's causing them. The story feels desperate and heartbreaking at the same time, with the choices Karen makes and the things that come back from her past. The game's ending feels realistic, despite the unrealistic situation, making the final score 3 out of 5 Harry Masons. Through the Woods is a really well told story that has some horror moments, but it's held back by the awkward moments in between the story and the fear, and as the game goes on, the fear fades. Again, I'd like to remind you, the whole thing is down to my opinion in horror games. If you don't share this opinion, then that's cool, I get it. I'd like to point out that whilst I was devastated by my actions, I did not give up and advise you don't either. There will be more horror reviews in the pipeline, and thanks for watching. Don't always go check out Bumps in the middle of the night. Peace.